My name is Douglas Tong, and I am the study group leader for Arakido in Canada. Arakido is the world headquarters of the Edo branch of Yagyu Shingan-ryu and the Otsubo lineage of Yagyu Shinkage-ryu Heiho. Arakido is run by my master, Kajitsuka Sensei. The style of kenjutsu that I practice is called Yagyu Shinkage-ryu Heiho. It was created in the mid-1500s. It is famous because it was the shogun style. It all began with a brilliant samurai named Kamiizumi Nobutsuna. He was born in 1508. He practiced Zen in his youth. He studied the teachings of Sun Tzu, the Chinese military strategist. He was trained in Hattori Shinto-ryu and Kage-ryu and mastered both arts. During his study of Kage-ryu, he became enlightened to the idea of marobashi, a free and natural adjustment to any situation. He created a new style of swordsmanship based on his idea of marobashi. He named his new style Shinkage-ryu, the new Kage-ryu. He also created the Fukuro Shinai, a revolutionary training tool, the ancestor to the modern Kendo Shinai. Kamiizumi was a great battlefield warrior. He was a commander of a castle and the general of an army. He was greatly admired by warlords like the famous daimyo, Takeda Shingen. But he was tired of all the killing and the death, so he abandoned the life of a warrior and set out on a journey to spread his new style, Shinkage-ryu. He traveled all over Japan and had over 100 disciples. His most famous disciples, like Yagyu Munetoshi and Marume Kurando, created their own styles. Normally, in swordsmanship, one is taught techniques for killing the enemy. However, Kamiizumi preached a different approach. He said, "The techniques of Shinkage-ryu are unbeatable. This comes not from the needless taking of life, but from the true courage required to avoid unnecessary fighting." In other words, his style avoids taking life. In Shinkage-ryu, we try not to kill people. There is one famous incident that occurred while he was traveling throughout Japan, which gives us a look at this innovative idea of avoiding the needless taking of life. It is known as the incident at Myoko Temple. One day, Kamiizumi Nobutsuna and his two disciples were passing by Myoko Temple in Owari province. They saw a large crowd of villagers standing some distance from a cottage. The villagers were concerned about something. When Kamiizumi asked what was going on, the villagers replied that a criminal was holding a child hostage in the cottage. They didn't know what to do. Nobutsuna said to the villagers, "Don't worry, I will rescue the child." He turned to the priest standing nearby and said, "Please shave my head and lend me your robe." Everyone was shocked. Nobutsuna stuck out his head to have it shaved. Kamiizumi dressed up like the priest and approached the cottage. The criminal yelled, "Don't come any closer or I'll kill this child." Without hesitating, Kamiizumi went towards the cottage, saying, "I have rice balls for the child. He must be so hungry." Kamiizumi took a rice ball from his robe and threw it towards the child. Then he took out a second one and said, "You must be hungry too. Eat this and take a break." He rolled it towards the man, who reached for it without thinking. The criminal let down his guard for a second. At that moment, Kamiizumi jumped forward and wrestled him to the floor. Then he grabbed the child and rushed out of the cottage. It was done as quick as lightning. The villagers then swooped down on the criminal as Kamiizumi returned the child to his parents and gave the robe back to the priest. The priest said, "Through swordsmanship, you have attained enlightenment." Because he perceived true greatness and nobility in Nobutsuna's character, the priest gave the robe to him as a symbol that he had achieved Kenzen Ichi, the state where swordsmanship and Zen become one. And that is the true story of the incident at Myoko Temple. This episode is so famous that director Akira Kurosawa used it in his opening scene of the legendary movie Seven Samurai. Shinkage-ryu was born in a time of war. The Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States period, was a time of civil war. Sword styles that were created in the Warring States period focused on techniques for killing. So in this time, Kenjutsu was originally just a way to kill people. But Kamiizumi believed that Kenjutsu could be a way to help people, to save lives, just like the event at Myoko Temple. He spread Shinkage-ryu around the country in the belief that if more and more people believed in his style and its principles, this would help to bring about the end of warfare and the beginning of a peaceful society. Even though Kamiizumi created his style during a time of war, he was already preaching a philosophy of peace. While traveling through Ise province, Kamiizumi asked the local governor if there were any samurai nearby who might be interested in a friendly match. The governor recommended Yagyu Munetoshi, the best swordsman in the area. A meeting was arranged at Hozuin Temple. Kamiizumi was 55 years old. Munetoshi was 35 years old. Before he could face Kamiizumi, Munetoshi first had to fight Kamiizumi's student, Hikita Bungoro. Munetoshi lost badly. He was shocked. Then he had to face Kamiizumi, the master. He looked at Kamiizumi. Suddenly, he fell on his knees, bowed deeply and asked, "Master Kamiizumi, would you please allow me to become your disciple?" Kamiizumi looked at him and accepted. This was in 1564. Kamiizumi stayed at the Yagyu village for a year, training Munetoshi. On receiving news of his son's death, Kamiizumi prepared to leave. But before he left, Kamiizumi gave Munetoshi some homework. Master the technique of Muto-dori. Muto, which means no sword, is the art of fighting an armed opponent when you are unarmed. It is basically how to fight when you have no sword. Kamiizumi promised to return in 1 year. Munetoshi worked hard. When he returned, Munetoshi showed his master what he had achieved. Kamiizumi was very impressed and made him the second headmaster of Shinkage-ryu. Munetoshi was summoned by the daimyo Tokugawa Ieyasu in 1594 to give a demonstration. Ieyasu was impressed and asked Munetoshi to come to Edo, which is modern-day Tokyo, his home city, to be his personal sword instructor. Munetoshi then 66 years old, declined because he was too old, but he recommended his 24-year-old son, Munenori. Ieyasu accepted. With this appointment, the Yagyu family's destiny changed. Yagyu Munenori would become the sword instructor for the first 3 Tokugawa shoguns. At the Osaka Summer Campaign in 1615, Munenori protected the shogun Tokugawa Hidetada by killing 7 enemies who had broken into the shogun's camp. In 1632, he completed his celebrated treatise on swordsmanship, the Heiho Kadensho. This would become one of the Bibles of Japanese swordsmanship. In 1632, he was appointed as Ometsuke, which is a position very much like the director of the FBI. His work involved keeping an eye on the major daimyo. Basically, exactly what the FBI does: domestic intelligence and federal law enforcement. He also served the first 3 Tokugawa shoguns as a political advisor. Working as Ometsuke for the Tokugawa government and as a political advisor for the shogun himself, he applied the philosophies of Shinkage-ryu to his work in the government.